Hey y'all, Nico here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for joining me. I'm Nico. Today I wanted to give you some modifications and tips on child's pose, also known as Balasana. Child's pose is a great resting pose, and it has many benefits such as stretching your shoulders and back, stretching hips, ankles, and thighs, relieving stress, anxiety, and fatigue, calming your brain. It can also help stretch your knees, flex your internal organs, as well as relieving tension in the neck and alleviating lower back pain. So first I'll show you the basic fundamentals of child's pose, and then I'll offer some modifications for you. So to begin, we'll come up to table position, and as always, hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. We'll bring our big toes together, and let's start with our wide knee variation. So I'll bring our knees out wide. Start to float our hips back towards our heels. Inhale to lengthen the spine. Exhale, melt the belly and chest down in that space in between the knees. Forehead, chin, or cheek can come down to your mat, and your arms can extend out in front. Trying to broaden through those shoulders. Maybe even slightly rounding your tailbone downward and pulling your belly button back. You can also bring your knees together. If having wide knees isn't comfortable for you, your knees can come together, arms can extend down in front, and you'll melt down on top of your knees. And when you have your knees together, you can also take your arms and let them rest along your sides with your palms facing upward and come to child's pose this way, another variation. This is one of my favorites because I love to stretch my shoulders and let my head fall down, kind of stretching my neck as well. And just let your arms relax. Now there are several different problems people may face when they're trying to get into child's pose. If they don't quite have the flexibility in their hips, or if they have knee problems or ankle problems. So some things you might need to modify could be a pillow or a rolled up towel or blanket. So if your problem is ankle pain or pain in your feet, you can take your rolled up blanket or towel and place it underneath your ankles, and then melt down the child's pose this way, just kind of alleviating some of the stress that comes from sitting all the way back on your heels. It just creates some cushion for your ankles. If your problem is your hips sitting back, you're not quite comfortable sitting your hips all the way back towards your heels, take your pillow, bring it underneath your hips. Bring it in that space up underneath your thighs, and it'll just kind of give you some elevation. If you need to make it higher, feel free to fold it in half even. And then melt down to your child's pose. Just create some hip elevation. If this is still too low, feel free to remove the pillow and come down to puppy pose, keeping your hips lifted. This is if you have very little mobility in your knees, very tight hips to where you can't extend your hips back towards your heels. Just keep your hips lifted. Come down to puppy pose. And also feel free to play around with the orientation of your knees. Sometimes people aren't comfortable with their knees close together. Sometimes people aren't comfortable with their knees far apart. So just play with that. Also, sometimes people tend to feel claustrophobic when their knees are together, so they need that space in between their knees. Another thing is if you feel like you're too far forward and there's a lot of pressure down in your head, maybe because your hips aren't reaching all the way back towards your heels, feel free to elevate your head. You can take that blanket and place it underneath the forehead. Or you can stack your fists and just make a table for your forehead to rest on. So again, just play around with your child's pose. Play around with using different props, seeing what feels comfortable for your body, seeing which version you like best. Hopefully this video was able to provide you with some helpful tips on how to achieve Balasana. If you have tips on modifications or variations for Balasana, feel free to leave them below in the comments section. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching. Peace and love.